Ladies and gentlemen, this is a story that came out in News One, December 15th, 2018. 52 Black men and boys killed by police. So many of these are stories that you will remember today as well as from the past. But, although these men are gone, we should never forget, and we should never forget how they died, because it's not like things have changed in society, because they haven't. We are still dealing with many lawfully gun carrying Black men being killed, as we've seen in the Manic E.J. Fitzgerald Bradford Jr. case, and unarmed Black men and boys that have been shot by the police. And some of these cases have made a lot of publicity and some haven't. But we should never forget, this stuff is not over. We are still living in this reality. And in this reality, this is a common thing that happened to our men. And we should never forget or become desensitized to it. I just can only imagine what these families are going through. I have a son, and you never want to see your son killed. Now we have Jamel Roberson, 26. I mean, these guys are so young, 21 and 26, so young. And if you remember, he was the security guard that was apprehending a person that shot up a bar in Illinois. And the police showed up on the scene. Although he was marked in clothing that clearly identified him as security, this cop shot him anyway. And you know what? To this day, we still don't even know the name of the cop that killed him. That has never been released. And we haven't heard about the cop's name in the case of E.J. Bradford either. No cop name released. It's amazing how they keep killing these people, but they don't want to release who these police officers are. Here's another one, DeAndre Ballard, 23, again, so young. And he was September 18th, 2018 in North Carolina. He was a university student, fatally shot on campus by a security guard. And then we, of course, cannot forget Botham Shemin John, 26, from St. Lucia, but he was living in Dallas at the time at Southside Flats, and murdered by Amber Geiger in his own apartment. And that's an ongoing case. They already had the grand jury that changed her charge from manslaughter to murder. Antoine Rose Jr., 17. Wow. Was killed in Pittsburgh, June 19th, 2018. And he was killed during a traffic stop. Robert Lawrence White, 41. All right, so he was shot on June 11th, 2018. All right, so he died in a police encounter. He was reported as suspicious, of course. What's new? That's a shame. Anthony Lamar Smith, 24. All right, so he was shot in December 2011 in St. Louis by Jason Stockley. Oh, I remember that. They had a big protest over that last fall. in St. Louis. I remember that because of the verdict. And the cop, Jason Stockley, planted evidence in his car, and it was seen on camera, but they still found him not guilty. It was ridiculous. Ramarley Graham, 18. Ramarley was unarmed when New York City police officer Richard Haste, who chased Graham into his Bronx home during an alleged drug bust gone wrong, and he killed him. Killed him in front of his grandmother and his little brother. Wow. It's ridiculous. Manuel Loggins Jr., 31. Actually, I remember this case. He was unarmed, and he was shot by a deputy after he reportedly crashed through a gate while driving an SUV with his daughters inside. 2012. Yeah, that's about the time. I remember when that was in the news, actually. I do remember that case. And then we know Trayvon Martin, who was killed by that demon named George Zimmerman, February 26, 2012 in Sanford, Florida. Sanford, Florida, ladies and gentlemen, is the place where Black babies were fed to alligators. One of the locations, I should say, because it was not all in one location. But Sanford, Florida was one of those locations where that occurred, where they would take our Black babies and feed them to the alligators. And you can look this up, all in history. I did a video on that on my old channel talking about that history. And Sanford, Florida was one of those very prevalent places where that took place. So, that place already has a very ugly legacy. Wendell Allen, 20 years old. Right, this is another one that happened in 2012 down in New Orleans. So an officer fired a single bullet into his chest, and it was during a drug raid, and there were several children in the house that ranged from age 1 through 14 at the time when they raided this home. Kendrick McDade, 19. Kendrick McDade, a local football player, was gunned down by Pasadena, California police, who responded to a report of a robbery when they pursued McDade on foot and claimed he reached towards a waistband. Oh, here we go with that nonsense again. Oh, they touched their waist. Okay, whatever. Okay, and he was gunned down. We've heard that a million times. Larry Jackson Jr., 32. On July 26, 2013, Larry Eugene Jackson Jr., a father of 3, was killed by police officer Charles Kleinert. Okay, so it looked like there was a police chase, and he was gunned down. Yeah. Wow. Jonathan Farrow, 24, an unarmed former Florida A&M University football player. Jonathan Farrow was fatally struck by 10 to 12 shots fired by Charlotte Mecklenburg police. You know what? That's where my cousin was murdered. He was murdered in that same place that I did a video on earlier this year. Okay, so the police officer shot this university football player unarmed. So it says that it was a car wreck and Farrow had went for help after a car wreck just outside of Charlotte. And this cop came up on the scene and killed him. And he was looking for help. Unbelievable. Jordan Baker, 26. Jordan Baker was fatally shot on January 16th, 2014 by Houston, Texas police officer Juventino Castro, a Hispanic cop who was off duty but in uniform during what his family said was a racial profiling stop and strip mall. Okay, so this cop wasn't even on duty and he was bothering this guy. So, he fatally kills him. Unbelievable. Victor White III, 22, died. He died while handcuffed in the back of a police car. From what authorities say, it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Wait, he was handcuffed and he shot himself. I don't believe y'all. A cop shot him. Okay. His father, of course, maintained his son was fatally shot by police. And I agree with the father. How the hell are you handcuffed and you picked up some weapon and shot yourself and get out of here? That didn't happen. That didn't happen. Dontre Hamilton, 31. Police officer Christopher Manny shot 14 shots and killed Dontre Hamilton, who was reportedly mentally ill, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on April 30th, 2014, after responding to a call for a welfare check on a man sleeping in the park. Wow. And of course, we know about Eric Garner, 43, father of 6, New York City. He was choked to death by Danny Pantaleo, and he's on trial. And I just recently did a video. He's on some type of police trial, some garbage they got there in New York, where he is going to get this very minimal punishment for taking the life of Eric Garner, which is ridiculous. So that was on July 17th, 2014. Boy, do I remember that. I remember that. And I remember following this story all through the years after this happened. And I remember when his daughter died not long ago, Erica. John Crawford III, 22. He was fatally shot. If you remember, he was in Walmart and somebody had called in a police call, the ones we're used to getting. And they claimed that he was in the store pointing the gun at people and stuff like that. And it was all a lie. When they went to surveillance, that was not happening at all. But this person lied, and I think they were only slapped with a fine for what they did. But that phone call resulted in the death of John Crawford III, 22 years old. And if you remember, he had a baby, and I think not long after he died, his girlfriend died. And that was in Dayton, Ohio, in a Walmart. And the cops showed up on the scene and just started firing. And it's sad. Mike Brown, Ferguson. And now the activists are all being picked off one by one down there in Ferguson. He was an unarmed black teen, and he was fatally shot by Darren Wilson on August 9th, 2014. And, they doctored up the video that came out, And it wasn't until 2 years later, many of you might remember this, after everything was over and Darren Wilson was in the clear 2 years later, they admitted that Mike Brown did nothing wrong. By then, Darren Wilson was safe. Couldn't do nothing to him then. 2 years later, they admitted he did nothing wrong. Nothing wrong, y'all. So there's more. And what I'll do is I will leave the link to this article. I see many more that I'm familiar with in the description box so that you can see this. I mean, this is really sad. And what's even worse is nothing has changed since the death of all of these men. These shootings continue on to this day. And it's a shame. These things are not going to change because the people running the criminal justice system are psychopaths. They're sick people. And they think this type of stuff is okay. But it's not. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.